Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're the hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every day, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can view all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues that affect you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
The Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission to order on December 10th, 2004. And the first thing that we're going to do is take a roll call. And I'm going to go by who's up here in the room and who's up on Zoom. So, Denham.
Good morning.
Prim.
Good morning.
Maldonado.
Here.
And Hamilton here, and Groupie here. And we have one guest in the room, Steve Arnold. With that, we will move ahead, and we will do approval of minutes. You all got the draft minutes for November 5th, 2024. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Or I need a motion to approve, sorry.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I second.
Kelly Jetzer seconded. Welcome, Kelly. Okay, any discussion on these minutes? Hearing none, we'll move to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, say
Aye.
sign. Okay, we'll continue moving forward. We have nobody in the room to appear for non-agenda items. FACTv, did you have anybody sign up? Okay, I'm seeing a shake of the head no. So we will move on to agenda item number 4. I will also note that Andy Potts just walked into the room, so welcome, Andy.
Morning.
We are on agenda item number 4A, which is to finalize our 2025 commission priorities. You all got a copy of those. I don't know, Phil, if you could put that up, please. Put them up.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
So while Phil's working to put them up, we have, since I have been chair of this group, we've tried to have priorities which let both our constituents know and our city colleagues know what we're doing and what we're working on, and it's kind of helped drive us to where we've been going the last couple of years. And we updated these in December of November 24, and you folks gave me your feedback, and I have made that adjustments. And Phil has attached it, I think.
Yeah, I'm just waiting on Zoom.
To the meeting minutes. Okay, so as soon as Phil comes up, is there any discussion on what was out with the agenda?
Here we go.
Okay. I have primarily, in doing this and updating, primarily tried to focus on safety, working with our colleagues in Bike Fitchburg, and knowing that we've got our first job next year is to get this bike ped plan updated. But in addition, there's some new things on there as we go forward. That's going to be how we deal further down this list with e-bikes ultimately, and the other types of vehicles that are on our trails down the road. So I think it at least gives us something we can say to our community, as I said, and our city folks, what we're doing. That we're not sitting still. And if I've missed anything here, nobody got back to me. So I guess I'll open it for discussion right now.
I guess on the RRFBs, I would put RRFBs/Hawk.
Okay.
Be clear that RRFBs aren't necessarily the best treatment at all times.
Okay. We can take that as a friendly amendment, and I can add that.
Is that shown on the screen here? I'm not. Oh, thanks. Got it.
It's under which, it's under safety, yeah. Okay, we can do that. Other comments?
I had thought that last time we had sort of tried to change the framing or wording for that first priority so that it emphasized what we were doing rather than the gold status.
I didn't pick that up. Go ahead, Phil.
I guess some of it may be semantics. I thought the conversation was just that getting gold is still a priority, just not necessarily ahead of, the number one thing is identifying what the city needs, and if that aligns with the getting gold with the bike league, then we want to go all hands on deck with that. So it's not necessarily that we're not pushing for gold, just that we want to de-emphasize ranking that above other things we've identified for the city.
I think the key with this, to tie into what Phil said, these aren't done in any rank order. I just have them listed as priorities for our group. So, but I'm with Phil. I continue to hear about this gold journey, and we have not addressed all the deficiencies from 2019 and 2022. So, yes, Andy.
Chime in too. I think I would agree. I think the discussion was that the points that we need to get gold are really what we want to emphasize, right. But that I think we're hearing perhaps from elected officials that the sticker of we're a gold city seems to be a priority for them. So even if maybe it's not, I think if the components are more important for this group, there still it seems to be an audience for wanting that gold status. And I think the chamber as well is very interested in getting gold status, even if maybe we're de-emphasizing that.
So Kelly, how do you respond to you're the one that raised this comment, how do you respond to that feedback?
I guess even just changing it so it says address 20, this goes back to the conversation about whether we are an elitist group. I think if the first thing we said is we were going to address deficiencies in our city's bike and ped infrastructure so that we can get gold. I think anybody outside who looks at this document would see that it's an action-oriented rather than just the gold status. Because I think there are some people who would balk at the idea of getting gold being a stated priority rather than the way you get to gold.
Well, we can put the gold journey reference under comments, and I think that may get to what you do when we can read. I will try and reframe this and get it back out to the group. Steve's here in the room and has his hand up. I'm going to ask you for any feedback on this, Steve. I think we have to keep it out there personally.
So, question. The thing that I remember is, as a deficiency, is showing better mode share and showing increased trips by bike, basically traffic counting. What are the other ones that haven't been addressed, and should we be listing them under the priority and over under comments needed to rank gold as a gold BFC?
Well, of those 11 to 12 deficiencies, and I'm sure I've got it buried in here, but one was city commitment both in time and money to the gold journey, to making biking better, number one. Number two, update our plan, which we're doing. Mm-hmm. And 3, mode was mentioned, but there was others, that more education, which I think is being worked on in collaboration with like Fitchburg. I mean, we tried to go with every one of these, but the top 2 were the plan that they noted that hadn't been updated, and the second thing was a feeling of more commitment from the city, both with money and with time.
So wasn't that what, Kelly, wasn't that what you were asking to be listed in column 1?
Oh, there it is.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, that is what I would like to see in column 1, and the gold, just like Steve said, have the gold be the comment, and the gold could show up multiple times in the comment. Like, if we do this, it will help get us to gold. But I think the priority should be the actions we will take rather than the goal of getting gold.
Well, so I think they're putting necessarily just the actions from here. This is the conversation that we were having, where if the bike league says, here's the thing you need to do to get to gold, and we say that's not a priority for the city, that's not necessarily going to bump it up into the 2025 priorities just because the bike league says it. I thought that was where the conversation went. So this one sticks out to me. Continue to work with the bike fed to basically, this is advocacy at the state level. I don't see this being something the city is likely to do in the coming months. I don't know that we would necessarily make state level advocacy from the city a priority because the bike league put it in here. So that's one where there is that conflict between what the bike league wants to see for us to get to gold and what Fitchburg is going to prioritize, or what the bike, I should say, what the Bike and Pedestrian Commission wants to prioritize.
and yeah, we talked about that. When we talked about that, folks, a year ago, we kind of agreed with exactly what Phil said, is that is not our primary objective, but everything else on here seemed to make some sense that we can work on. Bike parking, we've worked on bike parking. And we're getting ready to move more into bike safety education for students with the schools through the help of Bike Fitchburg. So again, like I said, other than and I think Vision Zero continues to come up through the T&T Commission. And Madison, as you know, if you follow what's going on in Madison right now, they're slowing down traffic more. And they are working on that. They're definitely ahead of where we are on that. And I think we need to continue talking about that as we do our bike fed plan. So I will be happy to reframe this and get it back out to you sometime over the next week or so. But I do disagree. I think we need to keep that our ultimate goal, because I continue to hear it from too many people. So I will put it over in the comments, but I will put the efficiencies as our number one, move that up to the top of that line. So I'm not going to put this out for approval today. Andy's given us a comment to add. Is there anything else on this discussion so we can get moving along with the rest of our agenda?
I do have one more comment. I don't think I would agree that the city has not done something to basically to say to this. They haven't made a statement to the state, but when they do a resolution for the week without driving, that's bike advocacy, that's bike and ped advocacy and transit advocacy, which if we frame it correctly, then we have worked toward that particular part of the deficiency they said we had. So I think if we frame some of what the city has done differently, they would see it as fulfilling what they're asking for. Because there was a big resolution from the city to participate in the week without driving, and then Bill was interviewed on the TV about it even.
Okay.
I could also incorporate that into the proclamation that I write for the mayor each bike month. I was going to suggest that in column 1, you could just put the action items and asterisk those that match up with commitments or with deficiencies that the bike league noted, and put at the bottom, these contribute to our goal journey.
Yeah, and that goes all the way. That goes all the way through this document. So, okay, I can do that. All right, folks, I will revise this, and you will see it again. But again, the key is that we need to, since we're a commission, we need to we have Joe here on the line with us. We need to have our commissioners and alders need to know what we're doing. So I'll update this. Joe, do you have any comments with this?
My only comment is kind of just re-emphasizing Kelly's point, which is that ultimately the work that we're doing is towards the greater good and increasing safety and making sure that, all of our residents have access no matter how they travel. So I would say, the gold status, though it brings a lot of kind of benefits in terms of, notoriety, recognition, potentially even resources, it's a sign of the fact that we're doing something for the greater good of our city. So I think if there's a way that we can just make sure to phrase that in that we're not just chasing a status, but we're seeking a status that speaks to the work that we're doing to make our city safer.
Point well taken. Phil and I'll try and get this revised, and we'll get it back out to you to take a look at. And like I said, maybe rearranging what sits up at the top too. We can go from there. Is there any other comments?
I don't have any.
Okay. All right, well then let's move along to item 2B. Walking in Fitchburg. As we look back to priorities and as we look at what happened to our group as far as the restructuring early in the year, walking was one of the pedestrian activity, and walking was one of the things that was discussed. As we started the bike ped planning, we have shared with you a number of pieces of information about walking, and Mayor Julia is also involved in a mayor's group on walking, and we have had Jim join the committee, but I guess I want to sense is as we get ready to go in the planning process, are we doing enough about walking? I want to have a discussion today. Are we doing enough about walking? And if not, what should we do as we go into 2025? And secondly, I see our healthy neighborhoods getting very involved with this as we move forward. So I just want to open this for discussion and see what priorities we need to add to walking to strengthen this. And it goes back to the discussion we just had. It isn't part of the bike league's journey, but it goes to making things safe and livable for our citizens. So I just want to open it up. And Jim, I'll put you on the spot first. You do walk around the city, and have you identified things and that kind of stuff? So go ahead. I'd like some discussion on this, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point. It's a really good thing to bring up, because I think there are, definitely things we can do. I was just looking through the priorities here a little bit, and some of these we could really make a little more, really we just moved from the agenda item, but, some of these are review all new street plans for bike input. Well, that should be bike and pedestrian input. There's things we can do. I think when we're thinking about these things, we can be thinking about pedestrians a little bit more as well. So yeah, I definitely think it's something we need to kind of prioritize in 2025.
Okay. Phil, I'll look to you for a second. Who is in charge of the HNIs these days?
HNI, we have a new.
Is it Jessica?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Jessica.
What is HNI?
Oh, sorry. Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative. I'm sorry. It is the 4 neighborhoods that were identified. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, sorry. This was an initiative about 7 or 8 years ago, identifying priority neighborhoods based on historical lack of resources and just generally, I think, lower median income and other risk factors identified. So there are several priority neighborhoods that then were wrapped up into a Healthy Neighborhoods initiative for Fitchburg, through which we have a neighborhood navigator that serves as kind of an intermediary between city and residents, as well as a grant program that offers funding to nonprofits, tackling different gaps with their initiatives every year. So the healthy neighborhoods that we currently have, and I hope I'm going to get this right, One is just west of North Fish Hatch, kind of in the Traceway Post area. One is the Allied Drive area. One is, we actually absorbed one new one with the Southdale portion of town of Madison became part of Fitchburg. And Jamestown, thanks.
Yeah. That's west of Florida Road.
Yep.
So I think it might do us some good, maybe invite Jessica to a future meeting and have her talk, because she goes back and works with these groups and have a sense of what they see as those priorities. We can ask about walking, but I also think we can ask about biking as well. I mean, that goes back to the comment about community input.
And as a bit of a spoiler for the bike and pedestrian plan, I've been talking with the consultants about engagement, and one goal is to bring in Jessica to loop in Healthy Neighborhoods, and also Sarah Olson to bring in the Equity Committee.
Okay. Yes, Don.
So I was just wondering, since we have that navigator position, does the navigator share a report with Jessica? Maybe we can kind of get a sense of what the navigator is seeing and the things that they're working on to better inform us as we look at these priorities?
That is my understanding. I don't ever work directly with the navigator. I can definitely talk with Jessica about that, but that's my understanding is that yes. That she does get reports back from the navigator about the communities. Like it's a two-way line of communication. Yeah.
Great. And just, being mindful that because that person are the eyes and the ears and the feet on the ground, when there might be items that she may wish to share with us that can better inform our work, it would be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I would say there's not a focus in what Jessica's hearing from the navigator on biking and walking conditions right now. That may be part of it, but it's not a point of emphasis. But I can ask her about that and see if that's something that could be focused on a little bit more. I believe we're also looking at hiring a second navigator, which will be great because it's a lot of ground for one navigator to cover. So getting a second would be really helpful.
We really need 4.
It's interesting to me that we're just focusing on 4 neighborhoods. I mean, we'd think we'd probably try and focus on the whole city. I mean, I get there's the neighborhoods that need additional resources and need additional attention, but if we're talking about healthy neighborhoods, shouldn't it be the whole city of Fitchburg?
Do you mean in terms of a bike and pedestrian focus or just the HNI initiative?
The HNI initiative.
I can't speak to the genesis of it, but I think it's really just about addressing areas of inequity.
The other thing is that if you look at Jim's comment, we have some other neighborhood associations that are fairly active. Seminole Forest is one, for example, Swan Creek, and those are pockets of people, and they might be worthwhile to try and engage, Jim. They're not called healthy neighborhoods, but they've got a group of organized neighbors who want to keep their neighborhoods safe and up to date, etc. That's just an idea. It's not a solution, but it's an idea of somebody else who can give feedback. So it gets us more across the city.
Yeah, because those people have had the feet on the ground in those neighborhoods, and they know what improvements are needed. So absolutely.
Correct.
I would also add that I know a part of our work has been coordinating with schools and just thinking about the fact that all the several of the schools that are either in or near Fitchburg serve a large portion of folks in Fitchburg and tend to be a little bit more hyper aware of what walking and biking conditions are because there's kids around. So Forest Edge, Leopold, Savannah Oaks, Stoner Prairie, and obviously there's going to be a new neighborhood or a new school in Jamestown as well in the coming years. So that's probably just a place to at least have contact with the school administration to be able to know what their safety plans are and what they need from the city to
for example, Joe, Verona They even have a bike safety. It's not, I don't know if it's about walking, but they have a bike safety course that the kids are required to take. This is one of the things that I've been talking about with Bike Fitchburg to get into these, as we have 4 educators now who can train on safe bike riding. But the interesting thing with the schools is that to get to Madison, you got to go through 3 layers to get up there. And Verona's got a person assigned to it. We got a hold of her. We did the bike ped plan. I'm sorry, when we did the bike plan. And Forest Edge was too new back then, so they didn't have much. But it's a very good point, and I hope as we get into the plan that we're working on, we bring those schools in as a part of it with MSA. So it's a good point, not to lose. Anything else?
Steve's got his hand up.
Oh.
Yeah, I would make 2 suggestions about walking. One of them is that there are organizations like America Walks and Safe Routes to Schools Partnership that could have criteria and standards and procedures for us to follow, like the Bike League does for biking. And it would be probably worthwhile to look into how we can become a, quote, bike-friendly, walk-friendly city. And the second thing about walking and being more equitable between biking and walking, it occurred to me that our new neighborhoods, we have standards for development that do pretty well for walking. And one of the things that the committee could do would be to undertake how our existing neighborhoods that were built under different standards, what are their deficiencies and how could they be brought up to those standards? So I don't know if that's of interest, but I
think we need to figure out how much we can bite off the chew.
Right.
That is, but I think it's a good point. I've been sending you folks, I'm getting the America Walks items from Julia, and I've been passing them on to you. So again, as we move into planning and move into next year, we need to gear up our walking priorities. Yes, Andy?
So I guess one other thought, I'll say this before FACTv can jump out here and tell me not to do this, but we could think about doing remote meetings too and just build time in to the meeting to just go to a neighborhood and walk around and actually like see what the infrastructure is like. I'm getting an iffy, that sounds back over there. Because we actually did do that during, when we did last updated the bike and ped plan, we did do a few remote meetings.
Okay.
And just, we walked around like the neighborhood up in just west of Fish Hatchery and just got to see what, where are there sidewalks and where aren't they? And if I live here and want to get here, how would I actually do that? It's much different to have the boots on the ground perspective.
Yeah, that also could be an audit activity that is, photos and videos are brought back to meetings, if that's easier to handle with FACTv resources and meeting requirements.
All right, so we're almost to the bike ped plan update. Bike audits, I hope you've been able to get out. This goes kind of what back to Andy has said, and what Steve had made comments on is that I've at least gone out and done a bike audit and a walking audit around my neighborhood, and I've gotten them all written down. I have not submitted them, but I hope the others of you have gotten out, and particularly now as biking season is kind of slowing down, gotten out and walked a little bit before the snow comes and identified things. I've identified several areas we need to ask to have green lines and crosswalks painted that may or may not get done, but at least we've gone out and identified them. So I hope you're getting out and doing those. I also asked the Bike Fitchburg board to do the same and gave them those same forms through AARP. So we will keep this on our agenda and keep moving forward. But Phil, you want to go going next into the bike and ped plan update kickoff. So I'm going to let you kick off.
Sure, we don't currently have the consultant on the call,
okay.
So we
why don't we keep going through the agenda?
Discussing on the audit if you'd like.
Well, we need to get through the rest of the second page of the agenda, correct? Which is a council update and your update.
Well, that would be the end of the meeting. So the plan was to have the whole
Okay.
kickoff conversation with the consultants as part of the commission meeting, so.
That's fine.
We could bump that to the end and do reports right now. I think that would require a motion and second vote to move agenda items around, if that can be done.
Which items, numbers do you need taken up?
What?
So this would be moving agenda item 4D to the end after the department reports.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Same sign. Go ahead, Phil.
So the council update first then.
Joe, update from the council.
I don't have any specific bike-related updates.
Okay.
Phil, two things staff-wise that I can think of. I didn't have anything else. One is that with B-Cycle, so we finished the year with, I don't remember the precise number, it's right around 24 or 25 docks still remaining out there. So we're talking about what will be the priority stations early next year. There have been some potential sponsors that were engaged in discussion and those fell through. So B-Cycle and the Chamber and Mark and some city staff are still working on identifying the best spots. We do have now, of the 100 docks that were covered under the TAP grant we received in 2022, we've now got about 75 of those docks placed. We don't have ridership numbers from the year yet, but it seems like it was pretty strong. There are a couple stations that just haven't gotten a lot of activity, but we're going to keep on working on promotion and education next year. We'll probably ask the Bike and Ped Commission to help with that as able as well. But we did, I think there was an update given a month or two ago that B-Cycle is no longer under the umbrella of Trek. They were sold purchased by a different third party, so Helen Bradley has been our general manager. She's actually moved into a new role, and they're in the process of seeking out a new general manager who will help manage the Madison and Fitchburg, Monona, McFarland B-Cycle system. So that's all in play, and as things get finalized, we'll keep you updated on that. The second one is that, sorry, go ahead.
When is the last day of B-Cycle? I know it's coming up.
December 15, it depends on weather,
Snow.
but
Depends on
snow. Typically, December 15 is when they pick up the bikes.
Saw someone checking one out at the Workforce Development Center last
Still.
night.
Oh, listen,
That's awesome.
this weekend, there was a lot of B bikes there, because I got out a little bit and they were out. So.
Workforce Development Center is good to hear. We also, the city did provide a number of free passes to the Boys and Girls Club to be distributed to folks either at Boys and Girls Club or the Workforce Development Center, and they said there's been a really good response to that. I don't have numbers from them, but they said they were well received. The other one is just that, Mark, I know you had asked about this. Bike Fitchburg purchased so we have 7 infrared counters out on our trails that we bought a couple years ago from Trafex. We haven't really found a use for that data yet, other than submitting it with part of our bike-friendly community applications. It just tells us how many people are riding on our trails, and a lot of those aren't Fitchburg residents. It's just, we're getting a decent sense of recreational ridership, but not other types. Bike Fitchburg bought one counter from Telram, a Denmark-based company, Netherlands, I think Denmark, Belgium. Belgian-based company that is a little counter you put on the inside of a window, and it can actually do multimodal differentiation, so it can distinguish walkers from 2 wheels from 4 wheels. So it works with the city, and the city has also purchased one of those and put it on the inside of the library window facing Lacey Road. So we're starting to get some data there. I've had some weird things where it tells me there's like 20% mode share of bikes on a cold morning, so I might need to reposition it because the data seems to be a little bit off on some days, but not all days. But we've at least got that as another potential source of data. They're not.
It's just Steve doing laps around there.
It is, yeah. Steve's just biking back and forth, zipping by.
I used to do that with those little things across the road,
That's all I got from for staff.
Okay, all right. With Bike Fitchburg update, Steve Arnold is here. Steve, you want to give an update for Bike Fitchburg, and then we'll hope that MSA, looks like they've joined the meeting, so.
I'll give a couple more city things. I think the council will be reducing a speed limit tonight for West Clayton Road. And on the public works side, I noticed that they took advantage of the good weather this weekend to get out and finish the hand striping crosswalks and symbols on Seminole Highway and the other roads that needed them. So if we hadn't had that good weather, that was going to wait till spring, so that's a win. Bike Fitchburg had its last meeting of the year. We will meet again in the fourth Monday in January. We're working on winter projects like the park and open space plan. We'll be helping you guys with audits and bicycle-friendly businesses, planning education events and so on. So were there any questions about? One other update was that our bicycle wayside on the Capital City Trail was approved by the council at the last meeting. So they approved the name and the concept plan. And so the Kyle Steger Greenway, which will consist of a parallel walking path, benches, bicycle repair stand and parking, and a memorial, will be along the Cap City Trail between Longford Terrace and the Cannonball Connector on the south side. So that's been put into the park plan, and we're continuing to work on that.
I'll add one more quick one. They're going to do their January meeting is going to be focused on planning for the year, priorities, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what needs to be done. Again, kind of what we're talking about with our priorities, and once we get these finalized, I think we will share that with them. So we are ensuring collaboration. We're not going to always agree, but I think the more we talk and ensure collaboration, the better off we're all going to be. So anything else, Steve? No. Okay, well, thank you. All right, I'm going to move us back to the kickoff for the Bike and Ped Plan Commission. Phil, I don't know if you want to have us introduce ourselves. You want our colleagues from SA to introduce each other.
So we got, excuse me, got over a cold like 3 weeks ago and nobody's informed my voice yet. So I know we've had some conversations already about the bike and pedestrian plan update for next year. We've kind of talked over the RFP that we put out, the response from MSA here. We have Brian Wiedenfeld and Olivia Bolton from MSA Professional Services, so they've been contracted to lead this bike and ped plan update process over the coming about 6 months is about how long we expect it to take, so it should be concluded sometime in May of next year is the goal. Yeah, I think probably best to just let Brian and Olivia introduce themselves, and then we can get some quick intros with the commission members as well.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Phil, and thanks everybody for being here, and thanks, Jeremy, for getting on early and testing the technology with us before the meeting. But we'll share a presentation, like you said, Phil. Definitely some opportunities to introduce folks within the committee here. But I'll get this going on our screen. Here we go. Everybody get outside and move yesterday during that warm weather?
Without a t-shirt.
Yeah. Let's see. Are we seeing full screen of the presentation now? Okay, cool. Right, yeah, so we'll kick this thing off. Just do a quick introduction of myself, and then my colleague Olivia can do so as well. But Brian Wiedenfeld here from MSA, assistant planner for the last few years with MSA, and excited to assist in this update of the bike and pedestrian plan for the city. I know MSA has helping out with a handful of projects with the city now, and we're grateful to continue to be a part of that and work with you guys on this update of the 2017 plan. And it looks like Olivia's got the lights back on in the office. I'll pass it back to Olivia.
Good
Good morning, everyone. My name is Olivia Bolton. I've been at MSA since May of this year, working mostly on urban design projects. I've been helping out with some of the neighborhood plans in Fitchburg, and I'm really excited to get working on this project as well.
And we'll move ahead here just to talk through the agenda today. We'll do some introductions, hear from us a little bit, hear from you guys, review our project schedule, and overall what this process looks like. We'll look into some of the public engagement process, both on MSA's part as well as the city, kind of have a conversation there. Review the previous plan and what the goals were in that plan. We won't get into the recommendations too much this meeting. We'll save that for our February workshop session where Olivia and I will both be in person. And then we'll look at some of the maps Dakota, our GIS specialist at the city, had put together, and then talk next steps and actions. And overall, just today, an overview of the plan process, what to expect, and take a chance here to listen and hear from you all on the committee of where you want this plan to go. We'll have a few poll questions, and that will require you to use your phone to scan a QR code. It is a small group here, so we can always just discuss those more openly as well. I think that's maybe better on our part then. And then, we'll kind of want to keep it interactive today, but any major questions, we do have a time at the end for questions as well. But here, just another introduction of our full team. So Olivia and I will kind of be the main faces you're hearing and the voices you're hearing through this process. But we've also got a handful of other specialists in transportation planning who will be helping out here. Sarah Runkle is our project manager. She'll be in the back end kind of working with Phil and Olivia and I through this project. We've got Sarah Morrison, who's assisting with any additional mapping needs that we might have. Certainly support from Dakota at the city has been helpful so far. Ann Holzem is one of our transportation engineers, and has a lot of experience working with, designing, and looking at different trail systems and bike and pedestrian infrastructure across the state here. And then Steve Tremlett is our planning team leader, who at the city you probably know already, and a face you're familiar with. And I'll pass it back to Olivia just to introduce how we move as bikers, cyclists, and movers in general. Kind of introduce how we do that.
So biking in my life is typically very transportation oriented, especially living in Madison. It's a very bikeable community. But I did have a photograph of myself and actually another one of our coworkers, who's also an urban designer, hiking together at Devil's Lake. Saw some beautiful fall foliage. I grew up in Colorado, so hiking outdoors is very much something I've grown up with. And I also really wanted to include this photo of my dad and younger brother, who are both avid cyclists. My dad is a road cyclist who does at least 100 miles a week, also loves being outdoors. And my younger brother, when he's not with the ragtag group of other 11-year-olds on their neighborhood bikes, he's an off-road gravel daredevil, trying to do tricks and catch airtime and everything that is mildly terrifying as an older sister. But so, not only has hiking and walking and biking really important in my life, it's really important to my family's life as well.
Great. And on my end, I'm an avid runner for sure. I just finished the Lakefront Marathon in September. But that's a long process of running that's been in my life, and using community trails and sidewalks and paved shoulders throughout my running career. And I ran with the Wisconsin Track Club over at University of Wisconsin there in Madison, so I've spent a lot of time on the trails near to Fitchburg. And also living in Milwaukee now, have a lot of experience getting out and biking on the trails and the infrastructure around here. But now we want to pass it to you guys, so let's do introductions of around the group, perhaps starting in the room there where Phil is, and then just give a name and sort of your experience with the committee here, and then as a fun question, sort of where do you walk, bike, or move in the city of Fitchburg? And no need to really scan in on this. We can just kind of do a popcorn around the room. So, Phil, do you want to start over there?
Sure. I was going to skip me because you've got an introduction from me, but I guess I haven't answered that question. Yeah, so I'm the sustainability specialist with the city of Fitchburg. Been here for a little bit over 5 years now. Staff 2 different committees, the Resource Conservation Commission, and then this one as well. I primarily just bike for, excuse me, for recreation and exercise. This summer I biked a lot to try to get a toddler to sleep on the weekends. When I'm able, I'll bike or walk to the office. I only live a mile away from work. It's a little bit tough with daycare drop-off that's a 15-minute drive away, but yeah, still do my best to get out when I'm able.
Awesome.
Steve?
Yeah, Steve Arnold, treasurer of Bike Fitchburg and secretary of the Bike Fed and 30-year resident. This year I biked 100% of the paths and roads of Fitchburg except for the single track, about 12 miles of that. For walking, I am a fan of the Ice Age Trail and also snowshoeing. And I've been a bicycle commuter from 2007. 2010, it became a year-round bicycle commuter. And then when I finally retired, 2012, I had to switch to recreational cycling, which I do a lot of.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Mark Hamilton, and I'm chair of the Bike and Pedestrian Commission. Before we get started, Olivia, I'd like to say Rock Chalk Jayhawk. I am from Kansas, and I started riding when I was a teenager out in Midwestern Kansas. So I know all about the winds and the flat roads. But I retired from UW Health, and I was there for 26 years. And we've been in Fitchburg for 32 years. Part of the reason we stayed here was that my whole family's into biking. And as we bike, all the trails that came up makes it easier to move around and those kinds of things. I bike about 100 miles a week during the season. They've gone from long rides to places like New Glarus and the Hilly 100 down to 25 to 35 mile rides at a pop on the trails. So I've been involved in this. It's mainly recreation. I never rode to work. But at any rate, I look forward to you helping us update this plan. And as the chair, we've done a lot of work to help you, I think, get going. So welcome. Andy?
Thanks, Mark.
All right, if I can get on camera here. So I'm Andy Potts. So I'm also a 45-year resident of the city of Fitchburg. So as far as where I bike, I'm mostly a year-round bike commuter. I actually work for the state of Wisconsin, I'm the manager of the state budget office. Fun fact, I was previously an employee at MSA, probably about a decade ago. So quite familiar with the firm.
There's a lot of those.
Yeah. In addition, I'm also the chair of the Governor's Bicycle Coordinating Council. So I also get a lot of kind of statewide perspective on things, working with the Department of Transportation, Department of Natural Resources on a lot of like bike and ped issues there. And then I'm also a former alder for Fitchburg. I was on the city council for 10 years and served with Steve actually.
Okay, thank you. Those of you on the screen, Joe and Kelly.
Sure. I can go. I'm Joe Maldonado. I'm an alder with the city of Fitchburg. I represent District 1, which is Belmar, Jamestown, Harlan Hills, and Seminole Hills. And I have been really heavy into biking probably since about 2010. For a long time, I commuted. I used to commute from where I live to East High School and sometimes to Madison College, even in the winter. So I know about the studded tire life. I don't really do that anymore since my daughter was born 8 years ago, but I do bike for recreation, and I love to walk around. I live about 4 or 5 blocks from the Velo Underground, where about 5 bike paths converge. And I also really enjoy walking around the marsh. There's you're able to kind of walk through trails around there, as well as there's like a county dirt bike or mountain bike path. So I like taking that as well every once in a while.
Kelly?
Joe.
Hi, I'm Kelly Jetzer, and I have been on the bike committee for almost 2 years now, I guess. And I am a year-round bike commuter. I do about 75 miles a week biking from my place to UW-Madison in the chem department where I work. And so very familiar with the studded tires. And I also, we live right by McKee Park, and I walk and run over 1,000 miles a year on the trails at McKee Park and then the capital city and all the other lovely state trails that we have in our lovely city. So I make good use of those trails, both walking, running, and biking.
Jim, you're next on the screen.
Sure. Good morning. My name is Jim Denham. I am the newest member of the Bike and Pedestrian Commission here. I've been on for I think about 6 months now, something like that. I am totally blind, so I'm not much of a bicycler. I came on the commission to represent kind of the pedestrian end of things. I live right near McKee Farms Park, so walk the trails in McKee Farms Park and in this area quite a bit, but also very interested in pedestrian issues. Also very interested in issues for people with disabilities as well, because we want to make sure that all residents have equal access to our trails and our pedestrian trails and our bicycling. And so things like, auto pedestrian signals and intersections that can be crossed by pedestrians are really important to me as well. So really happy to have you guys engaged and looking forward to working with you.
Thank you, Jim.
We'll go Dawn next.
Great, good morning. So I've been a resident of Fitchburg now for nearly 29 years. Been an avid biker in Fitchburg and around the community for more than 20. Have biked with my family from the trailer to the tag-along to them having their own bikes. I was on the bike ped commission 10 years ago, that the first group that created the plan, have rejoined the group 2 years ago. I split time now between Green Bay and Fitchburg, and I've come to more appreciate our bike trails since being here. I have a hybrid and a road bike. I'm a fair weather biker, so once it hits 40 degrees or below, I'm indoors biking on the spin bike or the Summit. My favorite trails are McKee Farms Park, and I have a cool route that takes me out to Goochland Park. I really like that route. I'm also a hiker, so I've hiked the Ice Age Trail. I have a really cool neighborhood route in Highlands of Seminole through McKee Farms Park and back around. I currently am the Shiro, which is the lead for Black Girls Do Bike for the Madison chapter, and we partner quite a bit with the Milwaukee chapter, and it's a national organization of African American women who bike for fitness and trying to encourage others to bike. I'm also a member of Girl Trek, which is a African American women's walking group, again, walking for better health for ourselves and our families. And I participate in Outdoor Afro, Wisconsin, Iowa chapter, in which we are exposing outdoors to more people of color. So trying to get more outdoorsy, have always been an athlete, but don't want to pound as much from playing basketball or running. So hiking, walking, and biking are my activities of choice these days.
Thank you, Dawn.
And finally, Brad.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brad Sipple. I'm a planner with the city of Fitchburg. I'm a year-round bike commuter and mountain biker, and also really enjoy road riding when it's 3 seasons. I get 3-season road riding, I guess. When I commute to work, it takes me. I say this a lot. I have the best commute I've ever had coming into Fitchburg. My commute takes me. I'm a couple miles from the Southwest Path, so I hop on that, take the Cap City Trail almost all the way to City Hall. So it's an excellent commute. As far as other places in Fitchburg I bike, one of my favorite road loops that I do, spring, fall, and summer is takes me kind of all the way around the Capital City Trail through, by the wastewater treatment plant and back up into Madison. And then, I ride, I don't mountain bike as much as I'd like, but I ride Seminole and Quarry Ridge as often as I can. That kind of rotate that in with my my rides out at Blue Mound and Camrock and stuff too. So really love biking, and I also take daily walks and or runs when I'm in the office, I guess, and when I'm working at home. But I guess I haven't joined the commission, haven't been staff to the commission, but I am coming along for this plan update process. So
great.
Thanks, Brad.
Good to see you again, Brad.
Between Brad in planning and then Ross Kaler in Public Works, he's a transportation engineer, and then Mike Burry with the police department. We got 3 other staff members that offered to help us with this plan update process. Along with Steve, we've also got Tony Hartman with Bike Fitchburg, who's not able to be here this morning, but Tony's going to be engaged in this as well. He's also a former alder, longtime resident of Fitchburg, and avid cyclist. Can't believe I forgot to mention, Fitchburg Chamber does some fantastic biking advocacy things, but the breweries in the area, a ton of breweries around Madison, of course, and they're all really, really good about advocating cycling as well. So Delta Beer Labs and Hop House in Fitchburg, as well as the Hop Garden down in Paola, just south of here, all great places to bike and hang out for all as well. Wisconsin Brewing Company, Lake Louie down in Verona, all really good destinations. Back to you, Brian.
Helping out with those bike-friendly businesses.
That's right.
Great to hear from everybody, and excited to work with you all. Let's keep it moving. This is more one we'll have you scan the QR code in for, or if you're just want to write that in the chat as well, that's fine. One major goal you hope to accomplish with the plan. We'll take a couple minutes there. Jim.
Got it.
If anybody wants to also just say them out loud, that is fine too.
Brian, you want us to fill this out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please.
So if you'd like, I could pull up some elevator music to play while we're waiting here.
Jeopardy.
I was about to say we need the Jeopardy theme.
That should start to populate as people are sending them in. This is more so just to help us get an idea of where we're at versus the previous plan goals, and if there's anything new that has emerged since then. I use this as a comparison process.
Well, this is Jim. I'm not able to scan the QR code, so I will just say, I think one of the things that I want to do is help Fitchburg become we have some great goals. We had a great plan that we did in 2018 or 2017, whenever it's done. It certainly needs some updating and needs some kind of modernization, if you will. But I really would like just, improve upon what we did done in the past and make, more individuals able to utilize the walking trails and the paths of Fitchburg, and also the bicycle, let's make more bicycle friendly businesses and other different things. One of the things that I think is really important, and I think we kind of talked about this in the meeting, is the ability to have sidewalks. Because if you don't have sidewalks, it's really difficult to be a pedestrian friendly community.
Sure is. Yep. Thank you, Jim.
This is Andy. I left my phone at home. I'm gonna have to actually grab it on my way into work. So I can't scan a QR code either. So I'll just also verbalize my thought, which is, I guess I would really like to see, I guess a major goal of the plan would be to see it as an actionable plan. And I think that was something that I appreciated about the previous plan was, I think a lot of times when we do planning, just in general, but oftentimes in the municipal realm, things can get kind of aspirational, and while that's good, I would really like to see a plan that does have very specific recommendations and that just gives us sort of a working list to move forward from in the next couple of years before we need to do the next update.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. And yeah, we'll cover that here in the next few slides. The importance of what we call that implementation matrix, right? That really has the recommendation, the timeline, horizon, who's responsible, and when are we, checking back in to make sure those recommendations or action items are being accomplished.
Brian, this is Mark, and I submitted my response, but I didn't get it all typed in before I sent it. So I want to add to that comment that Andy said. This plan that was done in 2017 was very good and very comprehensive. There were a number of things on there that we as a group didn't even get to. And what we tried to do as we looked at this last fall as a commission was to say, let's prioritize what's important to us. And you've been hearing some of it now, but at the same point in time, I think we need to look at our low-hanging fruit and then look at our stretch goals and then hold ourselves accountable. Because Fitchburg, like a number of other cities around our country, they've got more priorities than we have money to fund or time. And I think we need to do a realistic plan that gets all the right feedback, and then we need to figure out how we put it all together, connecting the dots, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think that echoes the feedback we've heard so far, looking at, I think, your review of notes there, Mark, but also Phil's discussions with Phil.
Thank you.
So that's recognized.
Hi, I'm thinking that in addition to the things that I believe are very important that other folks said, I think stakeholder engagement is crucial. I think in city we have had somewhat of a recent history of strategic planning not kind of being broad-reaching and not being equitable in its kind of response rate. So I think it's important that we engage our, folks that represent school-based organizations, nonprofit organizations, folks, advocacy organizations for, folks who have disabilities or underrepresented. And also, I know it was alluded to in our earlier in the meeting, but our particularly our neighborhoods who have been historically underserved, just to make sure that we are thinking about our built environment in a way that works for all.
To tie into Joe's comment, Phil shared with us earlier, and we some of us know this, we have a lady named Jessica Wolf who's now linking with some of these neighborhoods. And I think as you do this project, get her engaged so we can talk to these stakeholders.
Great, and we'll talk through that in our public engagement slide, and I know the city will be taking on more of that load for this process. Great, so I've got 6 responses. I think that captures everybody so far, and certainly if there's other comments, we can submit those to Phil and he can get those to us after. So we'll keep on moving ahead for sake of time. Let's check out our project schedule. Here's where we are right now. December, kicking off our project, reviewing the existing policies, plans, and data that we've received from the city so far. Olivia and I will be going back here through the month and into January, looking at the existing gaps and barriers within the bike and pedestrian network, revising those recommendations and developing the initial recommendations that we would bring to our working session in February. That'll be in person, and Phil will be putting out some info on scheduling for that. It will not be at this same time and meeting as the Bike and Pedestrian Committee. We'll work to finalize recommendations after that working session so we can bring together our implementation plan and matrix into March. We'll have a draft plan available in April, starting our public presentations. That'll be more of a hybrid format where I'll be online, Olivia will be in person, and then finishing with our final plan in May and moving forward through the approval process by the Plan Commission and then adoption by Common Council in June. So kind of a quicker process, 7-month process here with a lot of deliverables along the way. And Phil and I will be having our monthly check-ins to kind of check in on progress and take a pulse as we're going through that. Here's some of the considerations and expectations of the project we've noted so far based on discussions with Phil and what we've heard through some of the notes on the previous plan. The plan itself is going to receive a fresh, full update of all the maps, data, and information to reflect the current city landscape. Obviously, a lot of growth in the last 7 years within the city, some annexations, a lot of changes in the way we move around our communities with COVID right there in the middle. And thinking about the way we live in our communities is certainly a lot different as well. We'll be removing and then revising those previous recommendations based on the progress since 2017. And then those new recommendations, right, are going to be realistic for the planned time horizon. Different from the previous plan was suggested 5 years. This is more looking at 7 to 10 year plan horizon. We'll be emphasizing and taking greater attention to pedestrian infrastructure and recommendations, not just bicycle network. And then again, reflecting some changes since 2017 with the onset of the V-cycle stations within the city, but also, kind of reflection of greater prevalence of micro-mobility across the transportation system here with different ways people are getting around, whether that's the bike sharing stations, but also scooters are being more prevalent. Certainly here in Milwaukee, there's Lime scooters everywhere. So, sort of that importance of that last mile, right, and using some of those tools like micromobility. A greater lens and focus on equity. And as Joe had alluded to, finding ways we can reach out to those community members who have not been addressed and asked for feedback and targeting investments more strategically and focusing on equity through this plan. Introducing the implementation matrix, which will really illustrate those action items for who and for what time for those to be completed. This plan will support the goal of achieving the gold designation as a bicycle-friendly community from the League of American Bicyclists, and then certainly referencing the expansion of the city area and new neighborhoods and the connectivity between those. Looking at who is involved, this group is going to be the major steering committee that we engage through this process. We'll be having our kickoff meeting here in December, but then in February, hoping to facilitate more of a workshop session. We'll be bringing in a handful of engagement materials and working more so just looking at the network itself, marking up some maps, having more of a discussion of major improvements, facilities we like to see, and then reviewing our initial recommendations and getting feedback on that.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah, Joe.
I noticed the county board is involved. From what vantage point? Is it like the supervisors that represent Fitchburg, or is it certain committees? Or?
We'll have Phil speak on that in a second.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is just MSA engagement activities. We're just engaging the BPC, and then as well as our public presentations are scheduled when the draft is available to get feedback and hear from committee members on that. And then we'll also be attending that public hearing at the end of the process where it's going before the Plan Commission. I'll pass it over to Phil because I know he's more familiar with what the city is planning to do for the engagement side of this.
Yeah, so we already talked a little bit about this last month. In terms of the survey engagement, there was a survey that was put out with the 2017 Bike and Pedestrian Plan update, so we revised those questions. Mark and Kelly both indicated you'd like to be involved in that. The plan is to email, excuse me, sorry. The plan is to email Fitchburg's alders and mayor, as well as the 3 Dane County supervisors who represent portions of Fitchburg, ask them to weigh in on those survey questions and invite them to have more of a sit down, in-person or phone conversation if they'd like to speak more to it. If they just want to answer the survey questions and get those back to us, that's fine as well. But Joe, to your question, the plan with the county supervisors was just to ask them also, hey, are you familiar with this plan? How do you feel about biking in the portion of Fitchburg that you represent? Have you heard anything from constituents, that kind of a thing? We just want to make sure that that folks who are elected to represent Fitchburg are able to weigh in on this. In terms of the Chamber Visitor and Business Bureau, we also put out, as we've discussed, we put out a survey to businesses back in 2020 during the pandemic shutdown and asked them to weigh in on their experiences with biking in Fitchburg, how bike friendly it is, if there are any barriers, what are the strengths and weaknesses, how they or their employees or their customers, visitors, engage in biking. So we're looking at refreshing that. We've shared that information already in the OneDrive folder that's shared with the whole group. You've been able to see that. But it might be nice to get a little bit of a refresh of that, especially because just like the neighborhoods have changed, the boundaries of Fitchburg have changed in the last 7 years. Since that survey in the last 4 years, the business landscape has changed in some different ways as well. And then the citizen advisory boards, I'm going to speak with Sarah Olson and Jessica Wolf this week about to what degree they think the the Equity Committee and the Healthy Neighborhoods Advisory Board might like to be involved in this. I think rather than just kind of blanket messaging those groups, working through Sarah and Jessica as the point people for those groups and seeing if they'd like to provide any input before we get into this process really heavily, or if they'd rather just review once we're at a draft stage, just see kind of what level of feedback they think their groups would be interested in providing.
Thanks, Phil. And yeah, certainly through the process, right, we evaluate how the engagement effort is going and if there's more effort that needs to be made. And I'll pass it over to Olivia now.
All right, thank you. So something that we've mentioned a couple times so far is during looking at the update for this plan, the equity in transportation planning and how we can directly address that. One of the programs we can look at, especially for environmental justice, is Justice 40, being an initiative that is focused on providing bikeable and walkable infrastructure in targeted communities that aren't seeing those resources. And then also considering proximity to environmentally toxic sites and pollution. So being really strategic about finding the gaps in our infrastructure for transportation and where that can be ameliorated. Looking at community equity, so this WISDOT map in the lower corner shows a map of Fitchburg showing percentages of non-drivers. In some Fitchburg neighborhoods and neighborhoods adjacent to Fitchburg, 40% or more of residents are non-drivers. So looking at those areas especially for opportunities to improve bike ped infrastructure. And then also kind of in the general scope of equity planning, considering how we can meet the needs of all bicyclists and pedestrians in Fitchburg. And when we're looking at cyclists, considering the different personas, whether they're commuters or doing more recreational riding, road cyclists, sometimes competitive, preferring bike lanes over multi-use paths, as opposed to casual riders, which might include people riding with their children or as families that are prefer the safety of off-path roads away from traffic and trails, and then more mountain bikers that appreciate gravel riding and recreational trails. For pedestrians, something that we can consider as kind of a baseline, rule of thumb is the 7-17-70 principle. So looking at how, when a project is proposed, how that would affect or impact a person at 7 years old, 17, and 70 years old. So a 7-year-old is going to be is going to care about safe routes to school, access to parks. 17 years old, prioritize access to employment, maybe using bike pedestrian infrastructure for recreation. And at 70 years old, an emphasis on accessibility, health and wellness, and access to affordable housing. And then within all of those age groups, the entire community as a whole benefits from opportunities for connection and community. So using bicycle pedestrian programming and events to bring people together and also encourage that health and wellness.
Olivia?
Yes?
Just a quick question. I appreciate you having the map up for non-drivers. I understand the extreme focus of this is going to be on bicycle and pedestrian. Will your organization make any recommendations on public transit as well?
Those will be considerations within the recommendations, Jim, but not any formal recommendation regarding transit in this plan.
But definitely it's something that we'll want to consider, especially with kind of like the final mile of transportation, of where we can prioritize infrastructure to connect to existing transit route, to get that final connection to how do you get from your front door to your final destination, and the paths in between transit, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you.
So now we're going to pivot into looking at the 2017 bicycle pedestrian plan directly. So I'm just going to run through all of the key goals that were established in that plan. The first being, so the general theme to expand options, including creating a plan that makes walking and bicycling an option for more residents, workers, and visitors, and achieving that expansion through a multifaceted approach using facilities and programming that makes bicycling and walking safe, comfortable, and inviting. And I feel like those three adjectives are really important to kind of encompassing what would attract people, kind of like we were getting at earlier about turning goals into actionable items that can carry forward, about what can we do to directly make something safe, comfortable, and inviting for all members of the community of different ages, backgrounds, and abilities. The next theme was connecting our regional or our local trail system to larger regional trails and to neighboring communities. Then the next, and then also improving and connections within the city, kind of like what we were just talking about, connecting to transit, and for commuters to be able to use in addition to recreational use and trails. The next theme was improving the networks and intersections. So addressing the bicycle and pedestrian existing network and looking at key intersections. We'll show a map in a couple slides that looks at crashes with traffic and pedestrians in the community. And also considering safe routes to school, how we can make that safer for people to use. Then investment, continuing to invest in amenities enhancements that support the plan. And then finally, engagement, strengthening, enhancing, and promoting the education of activities through local engagement with residents, businesses, employers, and city employees. This is now taking a look at the overall framework of the 2017 plan to look at going forward. The entire plan is utilized around what are called the 6 E's and the active living approach. The active living approach is encouraging transportation bicycle and pedestrian as an alternative transportation that overall promotes the health and wellness of the community, getting it to be something that is integrated into everyone's everyday life and not an additional add-on, if that makes sense. The 6 E's, engineering, looking directly at the infrastructure of the bike ped network. Education, which goes into not only teaching people about the benefits of walking and biking, but also teaching drivers about rider safety and how to increase that, or how to improve safety for people. And am I getting background noise? Do you think
there was
can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
We can hear you in the room, Olivia.
Jeannie's ceiling room.
Fantastic. Okay, good. Then encouragement, which can be through activities and programming, bicycle-friendly businesses, again, getting at that easy, safe, and convenient. Enforcement, enforcing traffic laws, we'll be able to look at that closer with our partnership with the local police department. And then again, getting at that actionable plan items, creating an it has an evaluation system. So we'll get into that with our implementation matrix of ways to make sure that, oh my goodness.
Sorry, just making sure that I wasn't, my typing was muted.
No, it's all right.
All good, I can hear you guys just fine. So that establishing evaluation criteria to make sure that we're achieving the desired outcomes that we've set out for initially, and then overall considering equity, as we've mentioned previously. The plan itself breaks down into 5 sections. The first, identifying that approach. The second, establishing existing conditions. The third, providing network recommendations, separate sections for bicycle and pedestrian. The fourth, program and operations recommendations, and that includes a couple of opportunities for partnerships and events. And then that 5th category being implementation. The appendices also include the infrastructure toolkit, identifying facility costs and projecting that, and then the more comprehensive public engagement that was completed in the 2017 planning process.
Excuse me, Olivia. Under plan breakdown, I'm assuming accountability is baked into number 5, implementation. Is that correct? Because I think that was one of the weaknesses of our past plan.
Yes, I do believe it was in there, and something that we've kind of seen a lot while going through Phil's notes as well is that we've definitely, and it's been reiterated this morning, want to make sure that the implementation is measurable and achievable, because especially if we're looking at the scope of this plan moving forward, is that we are hitting those higher lofty goals and we have that sense of aspiration, but also we can start that little bit of momentum with achievable goals within the time span of the plan as well.
Thank you.
Great. Then we had another poll question using the QR code, and then for those who also want to just say verbally, what did we like best about the previous plan, and then we have a follow-up question of what did we like least about the plan. So we'll start with what do we like best? Getting a couple of responses there. Looks like the overall thoroughness of the plan supported, as well as the maps. Really, yeah, there was an extensive map compilation in the previous plan that'll be updated through the new plan here. Public input, recommendation format, allowed to look at action items. We'll be incorporating a similar format, but then finding ways to make those recommendations more achievable and measurable. And the bike facility selection guide. So yes, that was located in the appendix, as we've discussed with Phil, feeling like that section of the appendix is something that can be carried into the new plan as an appendix item as well. Admiral goals towards safety and accessibility. Great. And as Olivia was talking through the framework of the plan, that will largely be preserved moving into this new plan, more of working off as a framework, as a backbone for what the new plan would look like. Visuals were compelling, clear, and generally used well. Great.
And Brian, I would add two more quick ones. One is, be certain we update the photographs, because there have been a lot of improvements since then. But the second part, I think, of this whole process is that it doesn't need to be totally rewritten. It was a good document that was done. It needs what the city's called a refresher. And I think that's kind of where we are.
Yep. Yeah, and that's kind of what we've captured so far through these conversations, right? It's a good plan. Let's get the new info and get the updated policies in there, updated maps, updated visuals. I would ask Mark and Phil then if we have either within Bike Pedestrian Committee or Bike Fitchburg, any other organizations you could solicit to get updated images for us.
We can go to the Chamber of Commerce, Phil.
We can go to the chamber. The city also has a pretty decent photo repository that I can pull from. But yeah, Bike Fitchburg and the chamber would be the two other outside organizations to go to.
That's really good to hear, because we work with a lot of communities who have zero photos whatsoever. It's like pulling teeth to find some good images, you know.
We've also had some coverage on Channel 15 about B-cycles, which if you want to grab some of that, you might be able to get that.
This is Steve. I'll be your contact for photos from Bike Fitchburg.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve.
And
hey, while we're here, go ahead.
I was going to say we can talk with a couple other groups. You know, Dane County Boys and Girls Clubs has done a move for Boys and Girls Club event that goes through Fitchburg, so they might have some pictures from previous years. And there's a free Bikes for Kids giveaway. So there's a few other organizations that we could reach out to if needed that may also have some event photos. But yeah, the ones we mentioned are the primary ones.
Great. Yeah, we got some colleagues who do the Dane County Boys and Girls Ride every year, so that's cool. Here's what we liked least about the previous plan. Organization layout, it could have been better. Accountability, again, is a big piece there. Did not enforce the law, needs standards for development. Doesn't focus on things that impact most users. Accountability, and then again, yeah, accountability seems to be a running theme here, or too much to get a handle on. So achievable and measurable continue to be themes throughout this.
This is Jim. I would say that, you know, there was some things in the previous plan regarding pedestrians, but I would like to see that increased in the new plan. I think there needs to be more emphasis on pedestrian access.
Great. Thanks, Jim. I'll pass it back to Olivia. Hit on some of the recent projects and successes. Just kind of a list of them.
Yep, so this is the running list we have so far, identifying recent projects and successes. And then, so we'll continue to update this list if Phil or anyone else on the committee has any suggestions to include. Just kind of giving a very quick overview, adding a multi-use path and signaling at intersections on Fish Hatchery Road and County Highway D. West Lacey Road last year added bike lanes in both directions, in addition to a roundabout and crossings to get onto the Badger State Trail, I believe. Cyene Road through 2025 will be adding bike lanes and signaling at intersections. McCoy Road and County Highway H, the reroute for the capital city traffic to be able to cross at the signal instead of crossing in a different place. This project kind of we have in our notes received a little bit of mixed responses. It wasn't originally what just the rerouting of bike traffic in general was something that had to be specifically addressed. The bike pedestrian bridge was constructed in 2020, pictures shown there on the right, to route the Badger State Trail over McKee Road. New flashing beacons added on Seminole Highway to improve pedestrian crossings for the Capital City Trail, the Cannonball Path, and then also the picture on the right for showing one of the B-cycle network expansions established last year.
Olivia, to your list, you should add new neighborhoods, because each of them bring a swath of extensions to our sidewalk network and our multi-use path network. And there have been some miles of new paths and sidewalks in some of the new neighborhoods since the last plan.
And this was, oh, go ahead, Steve. I'll add, this was just kind of the first, the major points that I threw together, I think just yesterday to email to you. Ross Kaler, a transportation engineer, won't make him introduce himself because we're back past that point of the meeting, but Ross has joined the meeting, and he's the guy that's going to probably have the most comprehensive list of all the things that have been done in the last 7 years to address both bike and pedestrian network.
Yeah, and Ross, as you do that, you might want to also get the new developments that are being talked about to the south part of our city, as well as add in Southdale. So there's a lot more on this list. Oh, you're still going on this. I'm sorry, Olivia. Go ahead.
No, no, it's totally fine. And also on that note as well, so within the plan, there's a list of upcoming capital improvement projects as of 2017. And so part of our immediate next steps will be to review that capital improvements projects list from before, see what's been completed, what's still in process, getting a closer look at that, and then also adding for this plan the next upcoming capital improvement projects. Okay, I've added to my notes. All right, so then we also have additional recent projects and successes. Fitchburg has 20 bicycle-friendly businesses, which, as you can see in the comparison of the others on the list, is incredibly impressive. So significant kudos for that. All have been added since the 2017 plan update, including especially the City of Fitchburg main civic campus. Fitchburg repealed its mandatory bicycle registration ordinance, removing a potential perceived barrier to cycling. Fitchburg renewed its bicycle-friendly community status in 2023. It has a silver designation. It's one of our goals we talked about earlier, to create a plan that will help the community achieve that gold status. But it does have the silver designation through 2027. And then the Chamber began a Bike the Berg Challenge in 2021 that's been conducted in every summer since, encouraging residents to increase their bike riding with a target of 150 miles typically over the summer months. And while I was researching that the Bike the Berg event, I found a bunch of other amenities that we don't have necessarily listed here, but I thought were really important to call out. Through the Bike the Berg, I found a couple different network maps, as like shown on the right, showing different loops and opportunities to get a comprehensive ride in that also identifies all of the different businesses and destinations on the route. And then I also found a separate family fun map so it's a similar identifying routes and networks, but geared towards children. And also, I really appreciated that graphic included information about children's safety, encouraging helmet wearing, getting children familiar with bike laws, and the entire document with all of those maps is provided in English and in Spanish, which I also is just incredibly important for that accessibility. So gotten a lot done so far and excited to get the plan together to get a lot more done.
Great, and then in our last little bit here, just reviewing some of the existing conditions maps that Dakota has put together so far. And yeah, if you look at the previous 2017 maps, certainly a lot of major changes since then that Olivia has just gone over. And Mark, as you're addressing, yes, the new neighborhoods that have gone in and significant additions to the pedestrian network, but also some of the bike facilities within those areas as well. So we'll be bringing these maps in to our workshop meeting and utilizing these as kind of a backdrop to illustrate future connections and recommendations for the networks. These are both looking at, on the left here, the walk radius within a 5-minute and 10-minute walk radius from the existing Metro Transit routes and stops, rather, along those routes within Fitchburg. And then on the right, you'll just see some of the crash data for both motor vehicle crashes with pedestrian, but also motor vehicle crashes involving a bicyclist. And Phil, did we determine what this time frame was for this data?
This is the 2017 through 2023 data from the top slab.
Okay, thank you.
And I would add,
some information.
Phil mentioned Mike Burry from the police department, who's a liaison in this project. He had provided some updated crash data as well from what he had and identified a couple of problematic intersections. So there's some more data, not data, but info we have to work from.
Certainly.
And so this is Ross. I'm the transportation engineer Phil mentioned to me earlier. We also now have a high injury network map from the MPO that I think would be the best source for this. And I think I have all that access to the top slab data too. So if we want raw data, I can get that, and I'll be, I think, more involved in this than PD will. So.
Yep. And discussions with you, Ross, and Dakota, then to put that data into action in our maps. appreciate your help on that. Just an overview of the existing land use map of Fitchburg, using this to identify where those key corridors exist and where the land uses are complementing infrastructure that's there currently. So these are all maps we'll be reviewing through our initial existing conditions process here in the first round of digesting the data in December and into January. And then I have one more survey question for folks looking at particular corridors that should be prioritized for both biking and pedestrian facilities. So this question will prompt you for both. So looking just for particular areas or potential street names, intersections, areas that you feel are lacking currently or need significant improvements.
I'll weigh in.
You're good.
I think the Jamestown neighborhood is one in particular that could be better in certain places with regards to pedestrian transportation in particular, but also biking infrastructure. I know on Anton Drive, there's a sidewalk on one half of the street, but in others in which kind of more community-facing businesses and organizations are there, having infrastructure on the other side would be useful. I know that's very specific, but you know, this kind of goes back to Steve's comment that some of our older neighborhoods have less pedestrian and bike infrastructure than the new ones that are being built. The other thing I want to mention, this may be off topic from your question, but it's more of a curiosity than anything, which is that as I see different plans come to fruition in the city, and I know we have a lot of them, a question kind of pops up on council of, are those plans aligned with each other? So I know that can be a difficult task for like consultants that are just there to do sort of one particular thing, but I'm wondering if there's in general a mechanism that you use when you work with cities to check in with staff or check in with committees to say, are there things in this plan that we're developing that majorly conflict with other plans, just so that we can have some alignment in our plans for policymakers in the future?
Joe, you're a slide ahead of us, man.
Oh, great. Okay.
No, that's a big portion of this next step is the existing plan review, which we will be, typically our steps within whatever plan it is review of those existing plans. And Phil and the city have identified those plans for us. We will be reviewing those ourselves, but I'll then also checking in with Phil and possibly other members of BPC here to identify any context from those plans that you feel are most important to be included.
Great, thank you much.
You bet. Okay, so seeing some responses coming in, connecting Southdale to the rest of the Fitchburg, any safe east-west routes south of Cap City Trail, Key Road in spots. So Southdale is that new neighborhood that you had just mentioned, Mark?
Yes.
Previously.
One of them. That Southdale is kind of the triangle-shaped spur on the northeast corner of Fitchburg now.
It's up around Rimrock Road and the Beltline.
Sure, right in that corner. Great, a lot of good info here for bike facilities. And then looking at, with attention to pedestrian facilities in the area, mentioning Anton Drive again, like Joe had said.
And the
routes to
reconstruction of Verona Road was great for speeding up vehicle traffic and making it more efficient, but it's really become a barrier in the western part of Fitchburg for bike and ped. It's essentially a highway cutting through the western 10th of Fitchburg now.
Fitchburg's
Connections with neighborhoods. Sure. Yeah. Question then for Mark and Phil. I know the audits had been ongoing for biking and walking. Is there an update on that process?
We had a brief, I'll answer that question, Brian. We had a brief discussion about it today, and I think that people are out trying to do it. We gave them the AARP forms to use. I shared that with that and the Bike Fitchburg board. I've personally done a couple. I live over by McKee Park, and I have addressed those, one walking over to the shopping center and two riding around in that area, and I've asked the others to get it into us. So I would say it's in process. If you'd like me to give another reminder, we did do a reminder to the group today, so I think it's in process. I don't know, Steve, do you have any further update on that? Any update?
No.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, go ahead.
Like Fitchburg people are directed to provide the provide their audits to you for the clearinghouse.
Yeah, and I again, other than my audit, that's all I've gotten so far. So I'm a party of one.
Great.
It happened when
Great. Yeah, we'll check in and then. Yep. Great.
I submitted.
So, and then
I don't see it there. What I said was that I don't think attention to corridors is the way to go. I think we should look at the network and look for gaps. The network should be complete, cover the whole city, and that for the biking network, we have ready-made maps from People for Bikes in their city ratings. We need a similar kind of completeness map for walking, something like a walk score map, but I have not researched that.
I mean, there is, we can just pull up a walk score map for Fitchburg, and sorry, I'm just sharing this into the meeting room right now. But, you know, walk score map it already exists for the city of Fitchburg, and we can see, I agree that a comprehensive network is going to be valuable, but also seeing which corridors are the areas of greatest concern. And I think the ones that were mentioned in the survey show up on the walk score map as an unfortunate overlap of where you've got medium or high density residential and pretty unwalkable areas. And so what's been identified verbally in the survey is what the walk score map just on walkscore.com does show as well, that those areas are where we really need the most attention because there's a high concentration of people and just not viable walking facilities.
yeah, and Steve, I get the idea there. Yep, comprehensive look at the full network and find those gaps, but then part of it, right, is what Phil is saying there, finding those areas that are the problem areas, right, and targeting.
Brian, do you happen to know, I mean, because Steve asked like a walk score map, are we able to just pull the map from walk score and use it in our plan, or do we need to generate our own version of it? Do you know if we can just copy paste that into the plan if that's appropriate?
You know, and that's a possibility. We could also see if that data is something we can pull into, say, ArcGIS Pro.
Yeah,
that might be a possibility.
Dakota may be able to build something that's more useful for our purposes, but
the reason I like the People for Bikes network, BNA, Bicycle Network Analysis, is that all the census blocks are weighted by the population and the destinations that exist, so that out in our 1 mile square rural areas, census blocks with a few rural homes, they've got practically no weight because very low population, very low density. And then you can zoom right into the hot spots where people just can't get around, and it's a red to blue gradient, so blue is good, red is bad. If you're not familiar with those maps, I'd love to share my screen sometime and give you a tour.
Sure. Yeah, certainly, Steve. Appreciate that. And then lastly, we'll just touch on next steps and action items. As Joel was alluding to, yes, next step is reviewing these existing plans that are have been around or either being developed, such as the sustainability plan that Phil has been working on. Looking for then assistance from city and then the BPC here to provide any additional context on those plans that are pertinent as we're doing our own review. We'll be completing our existing bike and pedestrian network review and then developing those initial recommendations we'll bring to the February workshop meeting with guidance from the markups from, say, Mark and Phil, and then be back in City Hall in February for that workshop session in person.
Are those two resolutions listed there the prohibition of sidewalks resolutions?
They are.
I believe so.
Yeah, okay.
I know that one by heart, that resolution number, unfortunately.
And then one more you could add is there are some gaps and proposed gap filling paths in the Fitchburg Greenway network plan that Bike Fitchburg has adopted. Fitchburg Greenway system, I meant to say.
Got that, Olivia?
Yes, I do.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, thank you all for the time today, and got time for any questions, and then just alluding to that our next session here is in February with you all, and I know Phil will be coordinating for that.
Well, I as the chair of the commission and hopefully the co-chair of this event with you folks and Phil, I look forward to this. I think as I said, I think we had a good document in the previous one in 2017, and it's time to update it to. We've made a lot of positive changes. I think we have a ways to go, but I think nobody can look back and say we didn't make progress from 17. So looking forward to this, and we're here to help.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Mark.
As Brian mentioned, the working session in February, we talked about, just think it's best to not piggyback off the Bike and Ped Commission meeting. That doesn't leave the commission enough time, I think, to discuss all the things that Mark has been looking to get on the agenda in recent months. It also lets us move the next commission meeting back to 7:30, which I think is a little bit more comfortable time. We're also going to have Brian and Olivia here in person, and I don't know if it's both of you or just Brian, but driving from Milwaukee is pretty tough to try to get here from Milwaukee by a 7 or 7:30 meeting. So I will be sending out probably just a doodle poll or something like that to try and get best times for people. But in terms of meeting during the workday, are there any days or times that for anybody are just absolutely out? So I know Mark has mentioned that he's out for the first 2 weeks of February, so we'll look to the second half of the month. But are there, before I send out a poll, any days or times that should be straight up avoided?
Yeah, I'm sorry, folks.
So
I'm retired. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, one request I would make is if we want it to be in person in February, if it could be scheduled on a Monday or a Friday, I could adjust the schedule to try and be there.
Okay, yeah, that'd be fantastic. we can definitely.
I would say avoid Mondays if we can. Mondays are kind of tricky, so if we can avoid Mondays, maybe a Friday would be better if we can avoid Mondays.
So unless there are any objections there, I'll target one of the Fridays in February. That's going to be either the 21st or the 28th. And we'll send out a poll and try to figure out timing from there. And are you thinking, Brian, you think it'll be about another hour-and-a-half session?
Yeah, close to that.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. I got to jump off, everybody, but
thanks,
really
folks.
appreciate the time today, and looking forward to working with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And then I think we're still in session, so it's just the final onto the the announcements agenda item.
I don't have any announcements to give, except that our next meeting is, Phil said is going to be February, I gotta look.
Wednesday, February 5th at 7:30. Right. So we're starting next year. I know we covered this in emails, but we're switching to the first Wednesday of the months.
So we'll entertain a motion to adjourn, and I don't even know if we have a quorum left anymore. We've got Don and Phil and myself and Jim on, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Don, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jim. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And thank you, everybody, for your time. We will get a great document done. I appreciate the feedback today, and more to come.
Thanks all.
Thanks.